USA Ultimate is proud to present the 2018 USA Ultimate College National Championships. Our semifinal Sunday quadruple header culminates under the lights, and what a matchup we've got for you. The champ from 2 years ago, Stanford Superfly, last year's champion, Dartmouth Princess Layout. These two powerhouses collide in the semifinals, and the winner will take on the surprise Colorado Collie coming from the 12th seed into the championship game. The winner tonight will be the favorite, but who knows what's going to happen at Nationals. You never do. Evan Lepler, Megan Tormey, great to be back with you. Obviously the last two national champions, but more than that, these two teams have unquestionably looked like the two most dominant this weekend in Milwaukee.
Right, regardless of the opponent that they've been facing, they've been dialed into their program and what they want to accomplish in every single game.
Stanford program has won a lot of championships. Superfly Ultimate through the years has won Callahan Awards, has won titles, 8 of them as a matter of fact. Robin Davis, Jamie Noor, Jenny Loomis, the talented coaching staff for Stanford, and they picked up, I wouldn't call her a ringer, but Julia Butterfield coming from Notre Dame to Stanford has been a game changer, and she'll be key to guard Dartmouth's top player.
She's got a ton of experience in really high-pressure situations, and she brings that level of experience to the field in the way she dictates with how she plays the game. You can expect on either side of the disc, she's going to be impactful and helpful to Stanford's drive to the championship game.
Superfly is deep, so is Dartmouth for that matter. The Smalls Ivy League school in Hanover, New Hampshire has become an ultimate power because of the players that they have brought in over the past couple of seasons. They won the title last year under Eugene Yum and Laura Bitterman, and Jacqueline Verjus remains the unparalleled star in the women's ultimate game right now.
Yeah, she is 6'1" and athletic. That makes her fierce and a standout alone. But she has incredible field sense and will use that to her advantage to being a beautiful target on offense and being a fierce deep defender on D.
Maybe the best product ever out of the Seattle youth scene. Butterfield and Verjus matching up, worth the price of admission. We've got the opening pull between the 4th-seeded Stanford and the top seed Dartmouth when we come back to Milwaukee. The 2018 USA Ultimate College Championships are presented by Spin Ultimate, providing custom team uniforms and ultimate apparel since 2007. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com. And by Discraft, the official disc of USA Ultimate, now available at Midwest Meyer stores and over 2,000 retailers nationwide. The 4th game of semifinal Sunday on the showcase field, moments away from getting underway. Starting 7 for Stanford Superfly, Butterfield, McMinn, Connor. Shayla Harris is a dynamic athlete. Michelle McGee has been a tremendous player for Stanford for many years. You can say the same thing about Caitlin Go and Hallie Dunham. This program is special out in California. Before we get to the Dartmouth starting lineup, we'll send it down to Ian Toner. We talk a lot about Jacqueline Verjus, and we focused on Angela Zhu, the Callahan winner last year, Ian. But Juliana Werfele's had a remarkable season, and she is kind of the cog that makes Princess Layout go.
Absolutely right, Evan. She's filling the shoes that Angela Zhu held last year, quarterbacking the team on both sides of the disc, putting the disc up for athletic receivers like Jacqueline Verjus and Caitlin Lee to make plays. She's going to be the one trusted with making those critical throws down the stretch for Dartmouth.
Werfele now a senior, another Seattle product, 22 years old, part of the Brood Squad national title team, and she'll be gigantic. She'll play a lot of D. She'll certainly be out there, I would think, every single O point for Princess Layout. Eugene Yum was with Laura Bitterman on the sidelines last year. Yum has taken charge himself this year, and he sends out Werfele, Kelly Verjus, and the dynamic freshman Claire Trope. Caitlin Lee and Lily Eisner complement the Dartmouth squad in the backfield. And Caitlin Lee may have been the unsung hero of last year's championship team. She just catches a gazillion goals. She does it quietly, goes about her business, and gets it done.
Yeah, you can count on her to be that type of linchpin if ever they find themselves in a tricky situation. which really doesn't happen too frequently. This Dartmouth squad is so talented, so deep, that they often roll over teams. However, if there's anything we learned from the last semifinal, that you can go into the tournament expected to win the whole thing and be surprised by an upset. If Stanford puts up a good fight, it'll be much less of an upset than Pitt over Carleton in the last semifinal. But that wasn't lost on Eugene Yum, who said he does recognize that this could pose a greater challenge, and he's ready to lead his team to victory regardless of what Stanford puts up.
Superfly won the flip. They choose to start on defense. And Butterfield picks up Verjus. She gives her plenty of distance deep. A little bobble, but Christy Kelly makes the catch. Here's Caitlin Lee. Dartmouth and Stanford were the top 2 seeds at Nationals last year. They met, though, in the quarterfinals after Dartmouth was shocked by Oregon in pool play. Set up the 1-2 matchup earlier than we expected. There's Jacqueline Verjus getting the scoring started for Princess Layout.
And you can see why it's so helpful to have a player who is 6'1" on your team. As we watch Dartmouth work outside of their red zone, Verjus is just able to reach out a little bit farther than Butterfield and make this play easily.
Before she got to college, she was a superstar, playing universe point for Seattle Riot in big games in the club division. It seems unfair that she was a sophomore a year ago, now a junior at 21 years of age. And she's played with great teammates. It's not a one-woman show by any means.
That's true, but what you said earlier about it, almost unfair given the type of experience that she's had in different divisions. We're seeing that more and more in the college division. College kids getting opportunities with really competitive club team. They bring that experience back to their team, and even if they don't try and take everything onto their shoulders, even if they don't try and dominate, their higher caliber of play still helps elevate the play of the rest of their team.
Butterfield, she's got it! What a grab from Julia Butterfield to tie the game at 1.
Let me tell you guys, this is a Stanford heavy crowd here in the bleachers. The men's team here cheering on their women. And this atmosphere just erupted, rightly so, after Butterfield's grab.
SportsCenter top 10 nominee Hallie Dunham putting it up for Julia Butterfield to make the play. Epic.
Such an all-around talented player. Not only does she help lead Stanford's very dynamic offensive team, but she's capable of making some absolutely highlight reel spectacular plays.
It's going to be fascinating to see how this game evolves. Stanford threw 5 different distinct defenses against Dartmouth at the Northwest Challenge on March 25th. Dartmouth still won 14-13, but it was the toughest test Princess Layout has seen this season. Next closest game was decided by 4. Dartmouth took care of business this morning in their quarterfinal against British Columbia. And for both these teams, it has been a long day of waiting around. to play this primetime semifinal. Eugene Yum told us that he and some other members of his team went to a 12:30 movie. Appropriately, this is how the Star Wars movie Solo. They are Princess Leia after all, going for the good karmic vibes there. They had a team yoga session midway through the afternoon after the movie. Watch some of the Colorado-Pittsburgh Instant Classic won by Kali. Now they're trying to battle for the right to face Colorado for the second time this weekend. Dartmouth beat Colorado 15-7 in pool play.
Evan, down here on the field, every single member of Stanford Superfly that's on the sidelines is shouting instructions to their teammates on the field who have different responsibilities in the zone. Full investment and buy-in from the sidelines here.
Certainly the Superfly defense is forcing Dartmouth to throw a ton of passes.
Yeah, the Stanford coaching staff has to be thrilled with how stymied Dartmouth looks. Certainly not flustered, but having to labor for every yard.
And while Dartmouth doesn't lack depth by any means, they absolutely rely on their stars, who happen to be in excellent shape, and we don't see them get tired very often.
Nice job here with the Dartmouth handlers crashing from the back and stepping forward through the contact to open up opportunities downfield, something they weren't doing earlier this point.
Yeah, Emma Bushman, the freshman from Marblehead, Mass, stepped through, gained a bunch of yards. Dartmouth still not in the red zone yet. Stepping into the contact. This could be a physical game. Both these teams are tough. Verju to Werfeli. Back to Jacqueline. He took a bunch of steps, no call. No, there was a call.
The Stanford heavy sideline loves that call.
Rachel Gianforte is the Stanford number 22.
Let's do a resolution here or come to me? Do a contested and it'll come back? Come to me. Okay. Contested. No, what was
High
your
right hand, Jax, high right hand.
It was 0. Okay, it'll be 1. Defense, check it in.
I think Jacqueline was talking about the 3 points of contact rule, where if you throw the disc before your third point of contact on the ground, you don't have to set a pivot foot. I'm not sure her movement qualified there, but I think that was what the conversation was about.
I think so too, and I agree with you, Evan. I think that they have been taking that extra step because they're trying to get through the Stanford Cup, but not recognizing that they're taking those extra steps. And finally, the defensive pressure from Stanford pays off, and Dartmouth missed throws.
First opportunity for the Superfly D-line. That's Shayla Harris swinging it back to Michelle McGee. Gianforte launching. No! Aminata Kaloko juggled and dropped it.
It's really interesting to see Verju operating in the backfield so much against this zone offense. And just as we say that, she's now starting to transition to a downfield cutter popper roll Werfele's capable of hitting her over the top with some blades and hammers and deep shots.
And what do you think of the Dartmouth handlers catching the disc and then purposefully stepping into the Stanford mark?
I think it's a great move on their part. They're drawing contact to draw foul calls and reset the stall count and opening up opportunities.
Pizzo, Werfele, and Bushman working the disc. The completion percentages are rising, but Dartmouth struggling to gain yards. Basically a 3-3-1 zone defense. One of the 5 looks that Stanford showed Dartmouth. Obviously, both teams have watched that film numerous times since that game on March 25th.
That was a lesson Eugene Yum said that he learned. He felt Stanford had scouted Dartmouth better than Dartmouth had scouted Stanford. As a result, they've worked on nothing but zone for the last couple of months, oftentimes setting things up as a 7-8 in practice so that they had an extra body, defensive body on the field to make Dartmouth think twice about how they were going to work up against Stanford's zone.
Sometimes 8 defenders, sometimes 9. Going 7-on-9 against a zone. Sometimes they would do a box in 1 with 7 defenders plus someone on Jacqueline the whole time. But they don't have Julia Butterfield to simulate the size. To the end zone, Harris with the pressure. Leads to the turnover. This is really something, this chess match right now between the Dartmouth O and the Stanford D.
Well, this is the second opportunity Stanford has had this point. And Coach Robin Davis said it was so important for them to capitalize on these opportunities when they get them because Dartmouth does not often make mistakes. So the defense has worked hard for this possession.
Great bid by Butterfield, but an errant throw from Harris gives Dartmouth the disc back again. She had her open, just not enough float.
Again, you can't help but wonder what would happen if Verjus operated as a deeper cutter or a deeper wing, trying to keep some of those mid-level defenders more honest, because they've been creeping in quite significantly in that second tier of the Stanford zone.
Ian, what do you notice about Stanford's defenders downfield and how they're preventing the throws over the top?
To be honest with you, I don't know how much the Stanford positioning is taking that away, as much as the Dartmouth throwers just aren't looking for those options. And I can't help but wonder if Verjus was spaced a little better downfield, if that might be a more viable look.
There was no stall. Okay, we'll watch that because you're doing it quite a bit. Okay.
Emma Bushman, 19-year-old freshman, getting lectured by the Observer. 3 points into the semifinal round, prime time at College Nationals.
And rightly so. It's one thing to try and step through the zone cup, and another thing entirely to purposely run into the defenders. One is certainly permissible and one is not.
And by the same coin, how legal is it to hack someone as they're trying to step through for an open throw?
Right there, you saw Kaylin Hardell just hold her ground. She expected the contact. It was like she was setting a screen. Aaron Baines style. Werfele at midfield. I gotta say, the Dartmouth patience is impressive, isn't it?
It is, and they have the personnel to make these throws over and over again. And the fact that the conditions are not terribly windy means that it's unlikely that a throw will unexpectedly fly errant. So it's really a matter of patience marching down the field.
I mean, each team scored very quickly at the start, Verjou and Butterfield respectively. And this point has certainly had over 100 throws between the two teams. Most of them from Dartmouth. And the Stanford D is continuing to deny Dartmouth the easy look downfield. Now you've got Verjou as deep as she could be, standing near the goal line.
And Butterfield shadowing her, not respecting any other options until she comes back underneath.
And you see her now coming to the near side of your screen near Caitlin Go. Now Verjou back in the backfield.
These front three defenders in the Stanford zone have been basically running suicides back and forth across the field, but they've still been so aggressive, peeling off to shut down continuation throws and limit downfield looks.
Caloco, Gianforte, and Hardell have to be exhausted, but they are still running so hard. Werfele calmly sends it for Piper Curtis. She gains some yards to Pizzo. How about the anticipation there of that weak side defender, Caloco? And finally they go over the top. Right back to Werfele. Stanford paying a ton of attention to Verjou. Butterfield mirroring her downfield near the goal line. Butterfield lets her go as Verjou goes to the sideline, hands her off to McGee. Tremendous disc skill from Dartmouth. Not too much fancy about it. This is why they practice throws over and over again.
Push, Jax! Push, Jax! It's all you, there's no one behind you! No one behind you, Jax! No one behind you, Jax!
I have to think Dartmouth is trying to simply wear out the Stanford defense. And what a costly error. How many throws did they make to get to this space only to make that mistake?
Abby Ritterband unable to haul it in. See the pain and anguish in her expression. High stall count, deep shot goes up, and it gets over Verjou to Caloco. Verjou with the aggressive mark. Caloco calmly resets into the hands of Butterfield. Now typically the deep isn't running as hard as the rest of the defenders, so maybe that means Butterfield still has some spurt to her. 20-yard gainer, reset for Harris. It's the closest Stanford has been to a break. Harris shooting into the end zone. Verjou's there, and she dunks it.
And just as Dartmouth made a costly error, Stanford makes one of their own. throwing in the middle of traffic. And in that traffic was Jacqueline Verjus, no less.
Looking like LeBron James winning that jump ball. So Dartmouth has to go 70 yards again as Stanford sets its zone. In the middle, you've got Go, Harris, and McGee. And between them, that trio has an unbelievable amount of experience, but a gap is discovered. Can Dartmouth keep it going? Ian, how about Stanford's ability to recover after the cup gets broken for some yards? You'd see a lot of teams call fire at that point.
I think this is a credit to this team's conditioning. I can't imagine what kind of track workouts or suicides they've run to prepare themselves for points like this, but they are ready to rise to this challenge.
And the first 2 points had to be done in like 4 minutes. And this point has lasted about 15, 16 minutes. Timeout, Dartmouth. Do you feel like that's a little bit of a win for Stanford to get Dartmouth to take that timeout?
That's their first timeout of the first half.
And not a moment too soon, Dartmouth has really been struggling against Stanford's defensive pressure. Now, I don't know if part of the plan is to simply wear down the Stanford zone early in the game, but with as long as this point has taken, they are ready to try something else, especially given that last possession when they worked it all the way down to the end zone and then dropped it.
You see on crutches, Stanford's number 72, Ellie Norby, out with a broken foot. But Norby is partially responsible for helping to get Julia Butterfield onto the Stanford roster. They were teammates at Notre Dame, now both in grad school at Stanford. There were a bunch of schools recruiting Julia. University of Washington, North Carolina, looking at grad programs, and the Stanford coaches were like, Ellie, come on, help us out. Notre Dame, it's a connection. Stanford's the right fit, let's make it work. And she has been a powerful addition. Look at the speed of Animata Koloko. To Verjus. One thing that the Stanford defense isn't doing is denying the dump. Sometimes you'll see zone that will try to force them to throw into traffic, but they're giving them the easy reset. It's allowing Dartmouth to get the stall count back to 0. The converse side of that is blocking off more lanes downfield.
Right, blocking off more lanes, and Dartmouth is really having a difficult time working the far sides of the field, which is where you could get yardage gains when you don't have the opportunities to work in the middle of the field like this particular zone is set up.
Those front three defenders so aggressive on any fake downfield, really responsive.
Stanford coaches are probably thinking, what do we got to do to get a little wind? Pretty calm down there, Ian?
Absolutely, just a beautiful night, no wind, maybe a little humid, but any player's got to love these conditions.
Well, in both situations, you don't see a zone look that's so effective with no wind.
Verjus near the sideline, inbounds, hit midfield. Oh, nearly D'd by both Go and Gianforte. Now Verju has that look in her eye.
Great pinch there by Shayla Harris, shutting off the continuation strike cut to Jacqueline Verju.
And just when you thought Dartmouth had perhaps gotten the best of and in front of the cup, Koloko manages to seal it off, and we're right back to where we've been.
Wonder if Claire Chastain is installing this 3-3-1 zone, going over it with her team right now after watching Stanford prevent Dartmouth from scoring for more than 20 minutes.
It would be a brilliant move, and Colorado certainly has the defenders to make this kind of adjustment.
I mean, there have been 6 turnovers on this point. Dartmouth 3, Stanford 3. And yet I don't feel like I've ever seen a point that has lasted this long with so few turnovers on a windless night.
Get Jax, a little right, a little right. No backhand, no backhand.
Verju switches fields for Bushman. And that is in the end zone for Dartmouth. Hallelujah. The battle of attrition won by Princess Layout. The hardest fought third point of a semifinal I've ever seen. How'd this end?
Julia Butterfield looked back to the middle, not realizing that she had left someone open at the front corner of the end zone.
And Ritterband makes amends. She could have ended this point a long time ago. Would have been a tough grab, but you expect her to make it. So guys, remember the Stanford O-line scored in literally seconds. Many of the same bodies will be back out there again. You think the 3 players in the cup, Koloko, Gianforte, and Hardell will get a breather. They're all walking on the sidelines with presumably cold, full bottles of ice water. Butterfield joined on the line by Sarah Kratzer. Carly Ekstrom, McGee stays out there. Hallie Dunham, dangerous thrower, launched deep to Butterfield on the first point for the Stanford offense. Caitlin Lee's defensive pressure leads to a first throw turn.
And Stanford's gonna set this zone up right after the turnover.
Figure Caitlin Lee is rested. She was not on the field for that last point. Say the same for Claire Trope.
Yeah, anyone who was not part of the last 14 has had quite a break. You don't often get that in ultimate games with this high of stakes.
But look at this, a totally new batch of handlers, and it looks like it's the first team offense. Nice throw by Lee over the top, demanding the disc back. Claire Trope, the youngest member of the U24 USA delegation, Claire Trope, that swept gold medals in Perth. And Caitlin Lee is in. That's the first break of the game. Dartmouth leads 3-1.
Here's the throw that leads to Dartmouth's possession. And then Caitlin Lee and Trope have the answer for this Stanford defense. Watch Lee throw over the defensive pressure. Get ahead of those 3 cup individuals. Comes up from behind Trope And just as Trope pops up a little dishy, Lee leaps over the end zone line and brings it in for the score.
What other team in this women's division has the handling depth to do what Dartmouth just did on back-to-back points? Anybody? I'll take your silence as a no.
I'm running through the list, and I don't think there's anyone who matches in terms of caliber, player for player. Handling capabilities, no one has the resume that Dartmouth does.
Butterfield still on the field. Caitlin Go, Shayla Harris, Carly Ekstrom, Hallie Dunham.
What's the call here?
We got an injury called down on the field.
A foul call. Foul called.
Bushman taking a seat.
Are you two going to agree to a foul contest, or are you going to go to the observer? Retracted! There's no call. There's no call. Okay, we're still starting with a check here, okay? Coming in on 6. 6! Whenever you guys are, wait.
Caitlin Go is having a conversation with her mark. Presumably there was a stall called.
There's a stall on called. That throw.
Alexa
stall
Wing
call.
on the mark. In my mind, if you call a foul and then you rescind it, defensively, the stall count should go back to 0, because coming in a stationary play at stall 6, I mean, you don't assume malicious intent, but.
Okay. So you guys need
I see your point. I see your point.
Stall, or you can come to me. It's up to you guys. All right, we have a contest. Can I get the disc back here, please? All right, you guys are going to be coming in on
all contested.
8.
It'll be stalling
right.
8. Repositioning,
Wait till
repositioning,
everyone's all set up.
repositioning.
So you're going to be disc in, stalling 8. Are you guys ready? Whenever you're ready.
Instead of looking for the dump, she sends it deep, and it's taken by Trope. Butterfield was lurking, and Trope had other ideas. And there's really the first mistake in the midfield, quickly picking it up. Will this float enough? No. Intended for Connor.
Lee turned on the Jets to make sure that she took away even a possibility of a layout grab.
At the rate we're at, guys, what are we going to play to?
I was wondering the same thing myself.
I mean, this is not an ugly game by any means.
Yeah.
You see a score like 10-9, and you think, oh, what kind of trouble do the teams have scoring? This is different.
Right, a lot of time was eaten up a couple of points ago when Stanford put on that cup that prevented Dartmouth from making any gains for a very long time.
And we're still 51 minutes away from the soft cap. We got a ways to go. But the third point of the game took more than 20 minutes. And if you're Stanford, you stay with this defense and think Dartmouth's got to make a mistake sometime. But maybe they don't.
Maybe they don't, and the other point is that Stanford has to do a better job of converting those opportunities. They've really struggled once they've gotten possession of the disc. And I know it can be difficult when you play defense for as long as they've been playing, but once they get their hands on the Frisbee, they've got to value it more.
Ian, it doesn't look like the Dartmouth throwers are getting worn down by the length of these points.
Now, I mean, as a former handler myself, I relish the opportunity to handle in points like this, get lots of touches, but the Stanford zone forcing another turnover.
And Superfly capitalize. Butterfield took off, Harris sent it. Will it float the right amount? Yes! Butterfield is in despite the pressure from Lee.
Lee showing off her jets once again, but it is still not enough to take the disc away from Butterfield, and that is the D that led to the throw.
That's what they've been waiting for.
Absolutely. Trying to stay close to be bothersome. And Stanford picks up the disc, and Harris unleashes a dime.
Julia Butterfield, we're only 5 points into the game, and she's taking a beating.
And the angle that she was running at, she knew that Lee was coming in hot for the disc. If she didn't extend her arm and try and rip it in when she did, it was a surefire D from Lee.
Studying mechanical engineering, Butterfield. It's Carly Ekstrom, junior from Minneapolis, but from the moment that Butterfield joined Stanford and that became public, I think it changed everybody's thoughts about the women's division, because Dartmouth is absolutely still the favorite, but with Butterfield, they've got a weapon like no one else has, maybe aside from Dartmouth with Verjus. And Stanford, closest game against Oregon, they took care of UNC, I believe it was 8-3 at the half early this morning. About 13 hours ago that started. Day 3 of college nationals is always a crazy day in that all 16 quarterfinalists start playing really early in the morning. I mean, the alarms went off 6 a.m., 6:30 at the latest for all the players at the quarterfinals. They had to be at warm-ups by 7:30. And then 13 hours later, you're on the field in the biggest game of your season. It's a tough challenge.
Right, and this game would have started earlier if it wasn't for that epic lightning delay we had in the second semifinal. So adding even more time delay to the start of this one.
Trope takes the shot, and it's caught in the end zone by Dartmouth. That one snagged by Christy Kelly. Kelly, another player with club experience with New York bent, and the trust that this throw took. Claire Trope giving Kelly a chance to make the play, and she delivered with Ekstrom approaching.
Trope and Lee certainly have shown that they are more comfortable against this Stanford Cup. They are prepared to put throws up and over several lines of Stanford defense.
Juliana Werfele getting ready to pull. Werfele's done a ton. She doesn't have an assist or a goal yet in the game, though. Stanford could really use an easy hold. Allie Dunham to Michelle McGee. That's a big gainer. Sarah Kratzer over Butterfield. Dartmouth takes over. Verju on the sideline keeps it in, sending it deep. 2 defenders for Stanford, Butterfield and McGee, and they deliver the block.
Butterfield out of position, runs up and makes the play with her right hand. And the reason I point that out is because that was the disc farthest from the defender, meaning that's where she had the greatest chance of trying to make the play, having come up from behind.
Tell you what, this Shayla Harris-Caitlin Lee matchup downfield at the back of the stack is the marquee matchup on this point. So much speed and explosiveness from these 2 players.
Sarah Kratzer, freshman from LA, showing off her speed. That disc may have been deflected, but it was caught anyway by Caitlin Go. And she's hurt.
Do you need a trainer? She's like, you need a trainer.
She was hit hard.
Yeah, Werfele shouldered her right underneath her armpit, knocking her
right?
to the ground. And then as she landed, she hit her
Going
head
off,
on the
okay.
turf.
You're new? Okay, you're right here. Are you guys subbing with somebody?
At full
Caitlin Go, the veteran from Lexington. Go ahead, Ian.
At full speed, really didn't look like any malicious intent from Werfele, just jockeying for position on a throw to a really tight space.
Still not sure how Go held onto it.
Yeah, neither am I. Well, I think her hands were focused on holding on to the disc as opposed to catching herself, which may have prevented her from hitting her head, but instead she chose to hold on to the Frisbee.
Near the sideline, Harris was out of bounds. Acrobatic grab, but could not land it in. Werfele, nowhere to go initially. Lee with a reset. Verju.
She's got Piper Curtis going deep.
Now coming under. I'm just not sure Stanford can stay with the Dartmouth Cutters and their one-on-one speed. The combination of speed and the precision throwing that we've seen. And it's 5-2 Dartmouth.
Shayla Harris makes an athletic grab, but lands just outside of the field of play. Some good defensive pressure from Stanford right outside of the end zone line. But a nice tight throw to Lee ends the point.
Assist to May Hardebeck. Caitlin Lee with her second goal.
Evan, shout out down here to the Ulti-World Stats crew. They've been keeping some real-time metrics on this game. Going back to the third point of the game, the longest third point of any semifinal we've ever seen. Dartmouth had to throw 245 passes before scoring.
That is insane. And kudos to Ultiworld for pulling out the abacus and tallying that up. Friends at Ultiworld have been crushing it throughout the weekend, both their on-air streams, their written coverage. Katie Reynolds with a great piece about all the different Stanford defenses that Superfly employed against Dartmouth in that classic game at Northwest Challenge. So far, it feels like Superfly has thrown the kitchen sink at Princess Layout, and Dartmouth is just like, what? We're fine, no worries. Eugene Yum, the coach of Princess Leia, told me today, he said, compared to last year, I like our offense so much better. We have so much better flow. Last year was just give the disc to Angela and let her send it deep to Jacqueline. And obviously, almost 250 completions on a point.
Yeah, you watch Dartmouth, and it's very easy to forget that they are a college team. They function on a lot higher level, especially offensively. It is so rare to see a program in the college division as sure-footed as they are when they have the disc.
And Claire Trope taking the Julia Butterfield matchup this point. Huge assignment for her.
Harris continues to be marked by Lee. And she had nowhere to go, just sending it up. Butterfield trying to read it, and it boomerangs back into the turf. Superfly was moving down the field until suddenly they weren't. No Verju on the field, but Jacqueline has only been involved in one of the Princess Layout scores so far, the first one. Hardebeck marked by McGee. Back to Bushman. Harris bids, but unsuccessfully. Impressive that she got up as quick as she did to get a mark on Lee. Lee cross field. And it was tipped, but caught anyway. You gotta be kidding me. Claire Trope has been a force in this first half for the defending champs.
We've said it already, but it's worth saying again. She is just a freshman. As soon as that disc went off, Trope chased it. She was not the intended receiver, and yet she still went there and ended up being the one to make the play after the Stanford deflection.
It's been that kind of night for the Stanford defense so far, hasn't it? Applying so much pressure, forcing hundreds of passes, making Dartmouth go to their bailout, low percentage options, and still unable to cash in any breaks.
Bridget Connor, who got a tip on the disc. That Trope caught off the deflection. The third break of the half for Princess Layout. Largest lead yet at 6-2. Jacqueline Verju didn't even play that last point. She's back on the field now. 15-9 over UBC, but it wasn't really that close. Princess Layout had a healthy lead the entire way. Dunham, big gainer. Butterfield. That's gonna work out. Sarah Kratzer is getting open at will. And there's Bridget Connor with the score. Turnover, free hold for Stanford. They really needed that, didn't they?
And they need to continue with more of that. Their offensive flow has struggled in this game so far. They've had a difficult time executing longer throws, finding the open receiver. That throw from Butterfield came with a slightly higher stall count. So this particular point, not without its flaws, but working out a lot better for Stanford in the end.
Second assist for Hallie Dunham. What defense will Superfly throw here, do you think?
That's a great question. Coach Robin Davis said that she knew how important it was to continue to mix things up defensively. They wanted to make sure that Dartmouth didn't get comfortable against any of their defensive looks. I can imagine them coming out with that defensive look that we saw several points ago. Could also see them coming out with a really strong person defense.
Kind of a stretch to say that any of their defenses have made Dartmouth uncomfortable, especially because they've always had the easy reset and their throws have been so solid, throws and catches. Definitely a similar look to the really long point, but the downfield grouping is not exactly a clean 3-1 in the middle. They are, might be their diamond zone downfield. And now it looks like Stanford's matching up with Dartmouth crossing midfield. That throw goes up and it's deed. Bridget Connor was called for a foul. The foul was on the throw. For all the fans hoping that this game will get closer, they want this to be Stanford's disc. Ooh.
I think the contact might have occurred after she released the disc.
I'm not sure Go got the arm,
Okay.
other than with her
observer
head.
ruling is there is no foul. It was on the follow-through. It's going to be over there. All right, we'll wait for the check. Okay? Yeah, wait for the check. Okay.
Josh Cooper
Now,
waves
turn
it
around, watch
off.
them for the check. Okay. Are you guys good? Okay.
The
wait.
follow-through caught
Here we
Go
go.
in the face. That was the contact. And that's
Well, that-
not a foul.
No, that is not, and that means that Connor's fantastic layout D is allowed to stand. Saw the look in her face when the disc went up. She knew she was going to get in and get that disc.
Julia Butterfield. Over to Harris near the sideline. She's in bounds. Looking for Caitlin Go. Near the goal line. And for the first time, Superfly has broken the defending champions.
And that is bookends for Bridget Connor. As the throw went up to Go, Go found herself ahead of her entire team. And Connor stepped on the gas to get down there in time to be the receiver for Go.
And I love the fake that Go fired with a forehand before stepping back around to the backhand. It just opens up that up-line lane. Second straight goal for Connor. And in 2 points, Stanford has cut the deficit in half. A grad student studying computer science. She's played a lot of ultimate in the mixed division, the Boston area where she's from, with Slow White and Wild Card. Guys, at this point, it's very unlikely we're going to get to 15 here. About 30 minutes away from the soft cap. And those 30 minutes include 10-minute runoff for a potential halftime if Dartmouth, or Stanford for that matter, gets to 8. Caitlin Lee, known to her teammates as the Grinch. As a rookie on Boston Brute Squad last year. Juliana Werfele has been a member of the 2 Brute Squad championships in 2015, 2016. Werfele's just hanging out downfield on this point, being marked by Emily Tucci. You see the diamond defense downfield, kind of the 3 handler defenders, the 1-2-1, trying to keep that square shape, diamond shape between them. Ian, this isn't a defense that you see a lot in the women's or the men's game.
Definitely not, but it's certainly giving the Dartmouth throwers pause and limiting any of those over-the-top blades out to a wide wing spot and forcing the handlers to attack and be aggressive on their own.
And yet Dartmouth just continues to exude patience. And there's the score. Another great point from Caitlin Lee and Claire Trope. And in the end zone, Ella Zanitas, the senior from California, putting one up on Superfly in the semis.
You have to give credit to Stanford's defense. They have done such a good job of changing things up to the point where Dartmouth has a difficult time figuring out exactly what to throw against it. Caitlin Lee and Trope were set with the task of handling that point because several points ago they did such a good job of working over the Stanford Cup. Stanford puts out a slightly different defense, and even Lee and Trope are slowed down. All the same, Lee and Trope are doing a better job moving the disc over Stanford's defensive line, be it a diamond, be it a cup, be it a 1-3-3. Whatever the setup, they are doing a better job of finding those lanes over the defense.
One of the conversations we've had on the sidelines the past couple of days is how freshmen have impacted nationals stronger than ever before in 2018. That goes for both divisions. That's in every pool. We started talking about the most impactful freshmen in college ultimate this decade. I'm talking about it in regards to John Randolph with Brown, and Claire Trope is another one of those players that has made a monumental impact on her team, and now Dartmouth with a chance to take half after forcing another quick turnover. That disc bobbled and dropped. Finally, Stanford gets a break on one of those. Looking for Butterfield. Oh, what a catch. Using her size and her ability to read the disc to take it away from Trope. Kratzer has the score for Superfly.
Kratzer knew before the disc was thrown that that was her goal to score. Here's the surprising bobble from Lee that leads to the Stanford possession.
You can't
what a
hate
throw from
that
Dunham.
throw from
No.
Dunham into traffic. You just got to trust Butterfield, especially when Verju's not in the picture.
And Kratzer was calling for that disc when it was dished to Harris.
So Shayla Harris with her second assist. Kratzer's having a ball. 18 years old, freshman. National semifinals. Why not? Harris, on the other hand, has been here before. Stanford winning the title 2 years ago. That was their first title since 2007, when Superfly capped a three-peat, 05, 06, and 07. Last year, Dartmouth was the first East Coast team to win a women's division title since 2001, when Georgia won the title 17 years ago. They had Ohio State from the Midwest back in 2014. Other than that, it's been mostly West Coast clubs in the women's division. Verju right on the line. She was straddling it, so she'll need at least one more pass. And there's Werfele, and there's half. 8-5, Dartmouth in front.
That offensive point looking a little bit more like what we've come to expect from Dartmouth. Fast paced, always progressing, difficult to stop.
Dartmouth hasn't had nearly as many O points, obviously, as Stanford. But of the 6 turnover-free points of the half, 5 of them were from Princess Leia. They go to half with about 23 minutes on the stadium clock. That's the time until the soft cap goes off. Stanford has a lot to think about. Ian Toner thinking about it with Coach Robin Davis.
Robin, your team forces 245 passes on a single point. What does that say about the effectiveness of your zone?
I was really proud of the team on that point. I mean, they worked so hard, and they got the turn several times. Yeah, I would say that was an effective zone. You can't ask for them to do anything more than that.
What do you think your D-line offense needs to do differently in the second half?
I'd love to see us get open with our cuts. Work a little harder with our legs. I mean, that's a hard ask after you force that many throws across the field. But yeah, get open with our legs and make easier looks with our throws.
What's the #1 message to the team in the halftime huddle as you go back over there?
We're fighting. We're fighters, and we can come back on defense, and we're going to do it.
Well, best of luck in the second half, and thanks for your time. Evan, back up to you.
Exasperated, but still exasperated, but still optimistic. And still time for a shout-out. Always time for a shout-out. Superfly, though, with tons of work to do. The defending champs from Dartmouth are looking mighty strong.
There is a place where we are us at our best.
A place where everyone is welcome.
Regardless of age, shape, skin color, or anything else that tries to box people in.
A place where we defy the odds, defy the naysayers.
And even defy gravity.
A place where it's accepted that success
doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave, to the determined.
A place that knows grit, knows grace, knows bright lights, and knows empty bleachers.
A place where we remember to laugh,
Where we learn to trust.
Learn to high-five strangers.
And eventually, even learn to fly.
a place where character, community, and competition
are all as balanced as a disc in flight.
That place isn't in a stadium or on a field.
That place is in the spirit of our players.
Because we don't just play ultimate, we live ultimate.
3 yards. However,
Welcome back to Milwaukee. Just another night at the office for Dartmouth Princess Layout. They lead Stanford 8-5 at the half, and these first half highlights may look a little different. The opening 2 goals of the game came very quickly. Lee to Verju first, and then Hallie Dunham just sending Julia Butterfield, and the play of the game so far from the grad student who played undergrad at Notre Dame, full extension bid. It was 1-1 at that point. And then this was an ultra marathon point. Each team turned it over 3 times. Dartmouth completed nearly 250 passes, exasperating the Stanford sideline and the zone defense. Shayla Harris with some good throws. Tough grab there by Butterfield. That got it to 3-2. And from there, the next 3 goals coming from Princess Layout. Claire Trope had her say.
She certainly did, and Claire Trope and Caitlin Lee were 2 of the individuals who really figured out what needed to be done against Stanford's defense, which has been ever-changing but always intense. Trope having a fantastic time cleaning up the trash in that point, but Stanford refuses to give up and let go. Still fighting hard, working the disc down the field in not nearly as many throws as Dartmouth has been working in, but not without flair.
That got Stanford to 6-4. The go assist to Connor, who scored back-to-back goals. And then Trope, another dime over the top to Zanitas. Julia Butterfield patrolling the skies. And then Harris with another assist. But at 7-5, Dartmouth would calmly work it down the field. A turnover, free hold. And Verju wasn't quite in. Knocking over the pylon and then connecting with Werfele. Verju and Werfele, the backbones of this Dartmouth team. The leader on the sidelines is Eugene Yum. Ian, take it away.
Eugene, your team's enjoying an 8-5 lead here at halftime. Can you talk about the practices that simulated the challenges of the Stanford zone leading up to this tournament?
Yeah, so at practices we would try to challenge us, and we would try to play a 7 versus 8 on defense, try to go through a lot of different variations of zone. Unfortunately, I don't think we mimicked this zone very well for the first point against it, but hopefully, you know, it helped us with our patience. So, you know, as hopefully that can tell, and then hopefully we can just find holes and work our way through it.
Absolutely. If you've got one message for your team on the second half, what's that going to be?
Just to keep the intensity down here. I felt like the first half we kind of get up and up and up, and I don't think we do well when we're up here. Just need to keep it back to where we're comfortable at and leave it there, and, you know, and work our system.
How are you feeling about the Julia Butterfield matchups?
Scary, exciting, but it's scary. She's, you know, tall, deep defender. It makes us adjust our game a little bit more. So, yeah, very scary to face.
Well, thanks, Eugene. Best of luck in the second half. Back up to you, Evan.
Ian, thanks. We'll take a timeout. 8-5, Dartmouth leads Stanford. The Superfly have a run in them. We will find out next. Quick look at the first half scoring summary. Couple goals apiece for Julia Butterfield and Bridget Connor. Certainly expect Stanford's Butterfield to be more involved in the second half if Stanford's going to have a chance. Claire Trope, 3 assists for Dartmouth. Second half from Milwaukee coming up. Triple header of semifinals, almost done. 7 halves in the books and 1 more to go. Dartmouth, just a little dance party on the sideline to get ready for the second half. When you're up 8-5 and you're the defending champs and you've got the best player in the game on your team, reasonable to start dancing. Stanford, on the other hand, looks like, I don't want to say they look defeated. They just look worn down. They look like they've given all they possibly could. They're trying to lift this massive boulder, and they've moved it an inch, but they have to move it another 100 yards, and it seems impossible.
They have worked so incredibly hard against Dartmouth. And to their credit, they did generate opportunities. They unfortunately weren't able to capitalize on them, but we'll see what they come out with here in the second half.
Interesting. No Jacqueline Verjou on the line for Dartmouth.
And Stanford very clearly and intentionally running a 3-person dominator right off the bat for their offensive line.
Butterfield and Go prominently involved. And now getting it to Hallie Dunham. Amazing how much Caitlin Go has improved. She's always been a spark plug of an athlete, but now developing the total package, the throws, the cuts, the composure, the instincts.
And all of those talents you just listed exhibited in that point she played.
Turnover free hold for Superfly to get within 2.
Watch how hard Go works. She sends that disc to Butterfield and then makes the long cut to the front corner of the end zone.
And Dartmouth fans shouldn't worry too much. Jacqueline Verjou headed back to the line for this next offensive point. Caitlin Go, Julia Butterfield, they're not going to the sidelines. Probably not at all the rest of the way. Robin Davis, she's been leading this program for a long time. One of the most respected coaches in the game.
Yes, been coaching since 2002 and graduated in 2001.
Think about how Ultimate has changed in those 16 years since she took over. There was no Ulti-World video library back then for her to use to scout.
Some different personnel positioning and responsibilities here in this iteration of Stanford's zone. Shayla Harris was operating in the middle range, but now she's trying to be the very front of the zone, and Stanford catches a break with a Dartmouth throw out of bounds.
Can Superfly get within 1 here? Less than 10 minutes away from soft cap. Go beats Werfele to the disc. Sasha McMinn to Go. Beg your pardon, that's Michelle McGee. She's going up the line, and she is inches away from the goal. trying to squeeze it into a space that was not there.
And that was tunnel vision right there. She had a reset option. Staring at the same receivers in the stack for too long. An easy read for the Dartmouth defense.
Verjou pestered by Harris, flips it over to Trope. Claire Trope, by the time it's all said and done, might play for 3 different U24 national teams. Played this January in Perth. She'll be eligible again the next cycle. It's every 2 years. Should be a 2-time captain. Couple big throws to cross midfield. It appears all the time that Dartmouth spent practicing zone offense over the past couple of months has paid off in a huge way.
Every time they've faced a new iteration of Stanford zone, they have remained calm and poised. As I've said, these defensive looks have generated opportunities for Stanford. But when Stanford wasn't able to capitalize, Dartmouth is willing to put in the throws necessary to very slowly inch their way towards the end zone.
And there's a Hydra call on the field, signaling some shifts in offensive personnel here for Dartmouth.
Is it amazing to you guys that Dartmouth hasn't tried to just send it to Jacqueline Deep?
I've been waiting for that, especially as this game has worn on. As a handler in a zone that is stifling, and you find that you can't find options underneath, it can be really hard to maintain the composure and continue to slowly progress, as opposed to wanting so badly to get that long put off.
Another meticulous and efficient hold for Dartmouth. And remember, Stanford had it on the goal line and a chance to get within 1.
And there we see a couple of the longer puts of this point. Everything else just short little dishes between the handlers. And then Jacqueline Verjou finds the jackpot in open lane to Lee.
The numbers barely tell the story of her impact. Humble numbers for Verjou as well, but her presence changes the game in so many ways. Stanford's turn on offense. The 16th point of this women's semifinal. Butterfield found the release to go. Denham fires deep. And Caitlin Go wasn't running deep, it was Caitlin Lee. Jog from the park for her to knock that away.
Caitlin Lee with the D for Princess Layout.
Not quite the right shape from Dunham. I don't know that I would have challenged Lee in the deep space like that. But if you did, you're going to want to put a lot more outside in arc on that frisbee.
Butterfield, the layout block. Superfly will not die. Go couldn't get the around off to Butterfield. Timing on the cut wasn't quite precise enough. Back to Dunham. Low throw dug out by Butterfield. And in the end zone for the conversion. Aminata Kaloko fired up.
Kaloko with the Superfly score. That's Dartmouth 9, Stanford 7.
Butterfield showing off her prowess as a defender, coming in to get this possession for Stanford, grabbing that low throw, and then working that disc into the end zone around a very tough mark in Caitlin Lee.
Kaloko looks ready to go this next D point. He's from Sierra Leone. 20-year-old sophomore. Meanwhile, Butterfield, grad student, originally from Sacramento. Megan, Julia spent a season with your old club team, Chicago Nemesis.
I was already sad that I didn't have the opportunity to play with her, and watching her tonight, I feel even more as though the loss is truly mine.
Going to be either 9-8 or 10-7 after this point, and unless Dartmouth scores really quick, the soft cap's going to go on after this point. We're about 60 seconds away. This is Trope. Harris defending. Piper Curtis. Just another weapon for Dartmouth, who's played on U.S. national teams. She's been an afterthought, and she's still a star. A pick was called. Score would have come in about 30 seconds, which would have prevented the soft cap from going on until after the next point. It's going to be close here.
10 seconds now until that horn goes.
No concern for Werfele, who had it hand blocked at the point. Gianforte got a piece. And then Werfele takes it right back. What was that? Pivoting, shaking Gianforte away. The bodies collide near the goal line. Dartmouth delivers again. 10-7. Game to 12 for the right to face Colorado tomorrow.
Just layout score. That's Dartmouth 10, Stanford 7.
There's Werfele returning the favor of Gianforte's D. Stanford trying with everything they have to make these looks right outside of the end zone difficult. But nice cutting from Kelly to get open for Lee.
You can see the intensity on the sidelines from both teams during the final moments of that point and in the aftermath. Second goal for Christy Kelly. And Caitlin Lee continues to impress.
And Evan, you talk about the intensity here on the sidelines, and Dartmouth has a 3-goal advantage, but the energy here on the sidelines, the crowd, the overall atmosphere has the feel of a 1-goal game.
Fans would love to see Stanford get it to be a 1-goal game for real. Butterfield having a tough time finding an open target. Werfele comes up with her second D and as many points. Robin Davis mentioned it at half. We got to start getting our cutters open. Butterfield had nowhere to go.
Earlier in the game, I feel like Stanford was making their own mistakes offensively. In this second half, I really feel like Dartmouth has clamped down their own defensive pressure, making things even trickier for Stanford.
There was pretty good defense there from Stanford, but you might qualify that as an unforced turnover. There haven't been many of them, and this is getting ridiculous. That's the hat trick of D's in the last 2 points for Dartmouth's Callahan nominee, Juliana Werfele. And Princess Layout is within one of a return trip to Memorial Day Monday at Nationals.
Werfele is fired up and functioning on a slightly different level. Look at how close she was playing Caitlin Go.
And remember, Werfele's a D-line star for Brute Squad. Not sure she's ever gotten 3 Ds and 2 points before in a semifinal.
Timeout on the field. Stanford has taken
Superfly timeout. Just look at that group. How hard have they worked in this game?
You know, they came out with just about every answer you could think would be appropriate to stopping Dartmouth. And you want to talk about team buy-in. You don't force a team like Dartmouth to throw as many throws as they have tonight without everyone being committed to their role in the defense. There's a lot to be proud of, regardless of how this game ends, and how Stanford fought to stop Dartmouth.
It was 8:30 a.m. on Saturday morning, which feels like a year ago right now, when Dartmouth and Colorado squared off relatively anonymously on field 9. Colorado put up 7 goals, but Dartmouth still won handily. Claire Chastain and her team felt pretty good about the performance they had. In a way, it helped propel them, giving them confidence going forward. No one envisioned that the A1 versus A3 matchup, Saturday, 8:30 a.m. pool play, would rematch itself in the final. But Dartmouth 1 point away from giving us that unlikely scenario as reality. Hallie Dunham has Harris taken off and sends her. Beautiful.
That was a beautiful play to watch develop. Harris from the back of the stack, but still at about midfield, sees Dunham get the disc and immediately just takes off. Having the position in front of her defender, Dunham puts it out long for her to run and go get.
And now, it's a game to 12. There are at most 4 points left in semifinal Sunday, but Dartmouth hoping to take care of business here with Lee, Werfele, Trope, Verjus, Christy Kelly scored a couple times out there too, and familiar faces for Stanford. Hallie Dunham out there on D. Pretty good pull. Centered to Werfele. One of the first times tonight that Stanford matches up one-on-one. Of course, downfield, Butterfield and Verjus, stride for stride. Verjus, fake Butterfield deep, came under. Just an effortless pivot and swing to Trope. Verjus stumbled on the cut, returns to the stack. Open near the goal line. Dartmouth on the brink and into the end zone to officially clinch their spot back in the final. And they're not acting like they've been there before. They look just as euphoric as they did a year ago to surpass Stanford Superfly, the greatest program in women's ultimate history, in the bracket play at Nationals.
This entire tournament, no one has been able to put up double digits against Dartmouth. And here in the semifinals, no different. Look at how well this team works together to move the disc uncontested into the end zone.
Christy Kelly, the game-winning assist. May Hardebeck, the clinching score. This one was closer than the final score indicated. Stanford, a valiant effort, but Dartmouth just too good. And Princess Leia back to the final. We'll be back in a moment. The 2018 USA Ultimate College Championships are presented by Spin Ultimate, providing custom team uniforms and ultimate apparel since 2007. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com. And by Discraft, the official disc of USA Ultimate, now available at Midwest Meyer stores and over 2,000 retailers nationwide. Dartmouth celebrating a semifinal victory over Stanford, 12-8. And after we saw the #1 seed in the men's division get knocked off in the semifinals, Dartmouth avoids a similar fate. Our Discraft play of the game brought to you by Discraft, home of the Ultra Star. That beautiful 175 grams of plastic sent in the air by Hallie Dunham, and Julia Butterfield did the rest.
Look at that fantastic layout grab she made. Every ounce of effort put in to pulling that one in for Stanford. Of course, that was at the beginning of the game when they had all hopes riding in front of them. Butterfield buoyed their strength, but not quite enough to finish this performance out for Stanford.
Julia Butterfield was a warrior, but it was not enough. Dartmouth prevails 12-8. They'll face Colorado tomorrow in a surprising final. Dartmouth looking for their second straight title. Caitlin Lee down on the field with Ariane Toner.
Caitlin, a game for the ages. Take us back to the start of this season for Dartmouth Princess Layout and the goals that you all set for yourself coming into the year.
Yeah, I think after the end of last season, there were obviously expectations for us, both set by other people and for ourselves. But in the end, you just have to go back to square one, and we're rebuilding a team, starting, from the ground up, building fundamentals, building a system, trusting each other, and I think that showed here tonight. And we're like peaking now and trusting each other, and it feels great.
You talk about that trust. Can you talk about what it's like to have to throw so many dozens of passes against that Stanford zone before you score?
Yeah, I mean, they threw the many zones on us back in March at Northwest Challenge, and I think it definitely showed some of our weaknesses. And we were really intentional about, since then, practicing it, learning to just go back to the fundamentals, go back to the system, trusting each other, trusting our throws. And it's something we've been really, really working on, and it feels great to be able to come out here and succeed at it.
So you've seen Colorado once this tournament, beat them pretty handily. What are your thoughts heading into the championship game?
It's going to be a great game. Colorado is a fun team. They're a scrappy team. They're athletic. They're smart. And they gave us a good run during pool play, and they're going to come back with more fire, more vengeance. And so we're going to come out tomorrow afternoon and just work hard. And same thing, go back to our system, our fundamentals, trusting each other, everyone on the field. We're going to work together, and it'll be a great game. It'll be fun.
Well, Caitlin, congratulations on the victory. Go rest up. Good luck tomorrow. Evan, back up to you.
Ian, thanks. Great job down there. We got 2 championship games coming up tomorrow, starting at 3 o'clock Eastern, live on ESPNU in the men's division. North Carolina Darkside trying to win on the same field here in Milwaukee that they prevailed on 3 years ago in 2015 behind Jonathan Nethercutt. He's part of the coaching staff now, and the Pittsburgh and Sabanor program, who won back-to-back titles in 12 and 13, looking for their 3rd championship in program history. And then after that, 5 p.m. Eastern on the U. Colorado Colley in the finals for the first time ever. They are David. Dartmouth is the Goliath in this matchup. The #1 seed, the defending champ. You think about athletic programs, Colorado, the big state school, Dartmouth, the tiny little Ivy Haven in Hanover, New Hampshire, but in women's ultimate, Dartmouth are the queens, and we'll see if they can make it 2 in a row tomorrow. It has been an absolute privilege and pleasure to bring you semifinal Sunday here from Milwaukee. For our entire crew, for Ian Toner, Megan Tormey, I'm Evan Lepler. We'll see you tomorrow as Dartmouth takes down Stanford 12-8. All games airing on the ESPN networks or streaming live on the ESPN app. To watch the entire game on replay, as well as other games on our family of networks, log on to watchespn.com or download the Watch ESPN app. This has been a presentation of ESPN. We'll see you tomorrow from Milwaukee.